In the headlines, an unusual move by the Antilles Bishops' Conference demanding change following the public killing of U.S. citizen George Floyd. The safety of Dominican children, a major priority for humanitarian organization Israel Aid, and the EU's recent shame list as the difficulties confronting CARICOM countries already fighting COVID-19 and an upcoming above-normal hurricane season. I'm Andrea Louis with the Channel 5 News, back with the details after this.
Giving away $30,000 in cash, 2 bags of money plus a grand every Friday.
With Flow is better every day, and now we're making parties great. That's 3 ways that you can play. So listen up.
Top up.
$10 or more.
Sign up.
Just switch to Flow.
Get a plan.
1 gig or more. If you wanna win cash galore.
With Flow.
Win a bag of money.
Cash out.
Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? From Flow.
So top up, get a plan, or switch now to win. It only gets better with Flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Thank you for staying with us. First up, the Antilles Bishops' Conference stands in solidarity with the wider global community in calling for change as a result of the killing of George Floyd. Here is Julian Morris with that story.
Videos circulating on social and mainstream media show that George Floyd, an African-American, died while in police custody in Minneapolis by being pinned to the ground by 4 officers, one of whom knelt on Mr. Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes. Protests erupted across the United States and the rest of the world against this unjust death, and to date all 4 officers involved in the incident have been arrested and charged. President of the Antilles Bishops' Conference and the Bishop of Roseau, His Lordship Gabriel Malzer, says while it is not usual for bishops in the region to comment on matters in the United States or other metropolitan countries, a great wrong has been done not only to the black race but to the entire human race.
It proved to be, I think, a golden opportunity for the people of the United States, especially the black group, to press the point, to help the government or the authorities realize that enough is enough, that something needs to be done. You know, something needs to be done in the midst of the irrationality that is going on, the kind of racism that has really colored, you know, the United States and otherwise. I think that the protest is whereas no one legitimizes violence or anything of that sort, but the message that is being communicated is that what has happened to this young man, which is a repetition of some things that have happened before, that if it is overlooked and no one speaks about it, it means that we are condoning a system that is bad.
Bishop Malzer hopes growing numbers of calls for change will lead the way for real transformation within the relevant structures and systems in the United States.
The Holy Father has spoken, the other bishop conferences around the world have spoken, and people are rallying. You know, it is not only happening in the United States, but it's happening all around the world. And people are saying, and the good thing about it is that it's not only black people or Hispanics that are saying it, everybody is saying it. So we are hoping that the message will be communicated and that something positive will happen out of that. I really believe that it is a crossroad, that it is a tipping point, and it is an opportunity for something different.
The funeral service for the late George Floyd was held on Thursday.
In other top stories, Minister for the Environment, Kozir Frederick, has reminded citizens that the majority of Dominica's economic activities are linked to nature and by extension to its biodiversity. In his World Environment Day address on Friday, the minister voiced concern about the island's fragile biodiversity.
There still remain a number of threats to our biodiversity, such as deforestation, pollution, overexploitation of natural resources, unregulated development, invasive species, natural disasters, and the impact from climate change, which, if left unchecked, could negatively impact on our proud claim as being the nature island of the Caribbean and indeed the world. Over the years, the Forestry, Wildlife and Parks Division has organized and implemented a number of activities to increase public awareness of the importance of our biodiversity and ecosystems.
Post-Hurricane Maria, the Forestry Division refocused its attention on reforestation through tree planting drives and awareness campaigns.
Although the COVID-19 pandemic has hindered our ability to organize major social events with the general public, Dominicans are still being encouraged to not only continue replanting and beautification, but also take time to enjoy and appreciate the intimate relationship with our diverse ecosystems. The foods we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the climate that makes our planet habitable all come from nature. Let me take this opportunity to commend the Forestry, Wildlife and Parks Division for its continued efforts at educating and enhancing the level of awareness of Dominicans about our natural environment and conservation in general. It's time to wake up, to take notice, to raise our voices, slow down, sit at a park, take a swim, take a walk, plant a tree, take a hike, help save endangered species. Let's help our environment, our Dominica and by large our world, to thrive and to be a better place to live in.
This year's theme is Time for Nature Biodiversity. World Environment Day was first organized in 1974. It is one of the United Nations' prime vehicles for encouraging awareness and action to protect the environment. Over 143 countries participate in World Environment Day observances each year. In other developments, Chair of CARICOM, Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, says the EU's recent publication of a shame list is only adding to the unprecedented challenges facing the region at this time. Mottley says the effects of the publication of that shame list is compounded by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the expected above-average hurricane season. Europe recently took unilateral action, placing CARICOM countries, including Barbados, the Bahamas, and Jamaica, on a shame list of countries deemed to have strategic deficiencies in anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regimes. The EU's position is that the absence of these regimes in these countries pose a threat to the financial system of the European Union.
We reject that, but more so, we'd say that this is in spite of the fact that those nations whose names I've called and others in that shame list have already committed to working with the Financial Action Task Force on matters that are largely regulatory and in some instances, in the case of Jamaica and Barbados, depend on money supply and technical issues, but are not reflective of the scale of risk associated with a list of shame. It is our view that the list was not established in a transparent process with clear and concrete benchmarks. No one spoke to us. We read it in the international media. No one sent a diplomatic démarche to us, nor did it respect our right to be heard or allowed to prioritize ongoing reforms that we are doing to avoid being listed by anybody. The governments, my friends, of the Caribbean region reiterate their unequivocal commitment to cooperate with all states in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. That cooperation requires recognition by all of our sovereign rights under international law and respect by the European Union for the principles of good faith, equal treatment, non-discrimination, and due process, values which we share with the European Union.
Mottley says this latest EU action has the potential to cause great hardship for a region which largely depends on the financial and international business sectors for economic growth.
Left unchecked, the action taken by the EU would further decimate our economies, since our financial and international business sectors are key engines of growth for us in the Caribbean, and I must confess to you, was the only sector yet untouched by COVID until this unfortunate action was taken with the publication of this shame list.
In other news, livestock farmers being reminded to play their part in food security here. Livestock farmers are among the category of farmers receiving assistance from the World Bank-funded Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project. Project manager in the Project Implementation Unit, Kervin Stevenson, says the cash transfer aspect of the program will assist several livestock farmers.
The program is targeting broiler and pork producers with a certain management capability. In other words, we're looking for someone between less than 299 birds as small, between 299 and 599 or 699 as medium, and above 700 as large. And those farmers, broiler farmers, the assistance would be 3,000 EC equivalent for the smalls, 5,000 EC equivalent for the medium, and 7,000 EC equivalent, which would include provision of chicks and feed for a period of 5 weeks. Again, the commitment from those farmers would be they have to sell to the abattoir to ensure that we can have affordable meat to the general public because of the supply chain disruptions expected from broilers coming from the US.
Construction of livestock structures is expected to get underway soon for farmers who have already been approved under this project.
We are targeting over 300 livestock farmers. We have received 164 applications. So far we have done field evaluation for over 70 plus fields. That means we know what are the 50% contribution of over 70 farmers. Right now we have an engineer on board. We just got approval from planning because those plans have to be approved by planning because we're talking about incorporating resilient features in those livestock structures. So we're hoping that we can actually have contract with contractors within the next 2 months and somewhere before the peak of the hurricane season commence construction of those 71 sheds that have been evaluated already and continue the evaluation of the other applicants of the livestock program.
You are watching the Channel 5 News. Stay tuned for more after the break.
Avec flow, gagnez l'argent, on partit l'argent avec flow. Gagnez l'argent, on gros sac l'argent. C'est juste ça pour gagner un gros sac l'argent avec flow. Animez on top up, sign up, quittez yo, et vite joindre flow. It only gets better with flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
A new in-home experience is here. All your services bundled into one simple plan. Faster, more reliable Wi-Fi so that you can binge, play, and stream uninterrupted. Unlimited Flow local landline minutes mean you can talk and talk and talk. Plus the best in TV entertainment with over 120 channels and 29 in HD. All for $160 a month with the new all-in bundle. With Flow, it only gets better.
Welcome back. Child protection remains top on the agenda for one humanitarian organization here. We join Julian Morris with more.
IsraAid is playing its part in ensuring that children around the country, especially early learners on the East, remain occupied with school material to continue their educational development. There is no set date for the return to school, which leaves children at home for the majority of the day, which has led to concern among members of the community for children who live in abusive households. Head of programs for IsraAid, Felicia Peer, says the organization keeps the overall health and protection of children top on its agenda.
For us, child protection at Israel, it's really, really important, not just, for COVID times, but just generally. As it relates to COVID specifically, we know that children are in homes, at homes maybe 100% of the times. Some of the abusers are unfortunately in the home with kids. So at this point in time, there's not really, much Israel can do in terms of, direct interventions or going in homes. But we have child protection teams, which are in 6 communities that we're piloting, and essentially they're ears and eyes on the ground. So if, for example, somebody suspects a case of child abuse, then what we encourage is that you relay that information to the police or to the social welfare division. So we have put mechanisms in place prior to COVID-19 that we're deploying now.
IsraAid has also embarked on another program which will help determine the prevalence of abuse in society and subsequent action which can be taken.
We recently also launched a survey in collaboration with CREED and the Ministry of Education, where we're basically collecting information from the home. So, for example, how are parents able to cope in times of crisis? Are you able to set a routine with your child? Are you comfortable with reporting a case of child abuse? Are you aware of any cases of child abuse in your community or in, let's say, a specific household? And based off those answers, we will see if there is a prevalence in child abuse cases. And of course, child social welfare division is a part of the entire survey, and they'll be getting the results. So the results from that survey will help us to see the prevalence and if it's becoming an increasing problem, and how we can already begin to address it.
In addition to formulating measures to protect children, IsraAid is also taking steps to assist those who have lost jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
We noticed that, because of a lot of persons have lost their jobs, the employment rate, it's rising. There are no official figures, but we can already foresee that we're working on crafting an intervention to support some persons with online employment. So digital jobs are something we're looking at starting sometime in June with some partners and stakeholders, and we'd love to tell you about it once we further develop it, but it's something you can look forward to, and we're hoping to see the successful impact and hopefully scale up on that project in due time.
Caribbean countries continue to advocate for change in the way vulnerability among countries is determined. The chair of CARICOM continues to make the case for a revised vulnerability index. She says the yardstick used to measure vulnerability of countries is outdated.
Even when our circumstances deteriorate like now, there is no review or assessment mechanism that takes into account our inherent vulnerabilities. And despite these acute vulnerabilities, the region is being denied access to the support being given to those as vulnerable or even less so, because of an outdated and ill-suited definition of vulnerability, namely historic GDP per capita. I have already said that it is flawed largely because it is like taking my blood pressure from 2 years ago and using it to determine my vulnerability to a stroke this afternoon. It is totally futile. Almost 30 years ago, we recognized that GDP per capita was a flawed measure, and we repeated it when we met in Nairobi in December. We, like others, feel now that who are now reflecting their plight and their anger as citizens who have not been seen and who have not been heard, and who are now taken to the streets in the United States of America, they are reflecting their anger and disappointment as a result of the fact of not being seen and not being heard.
Modley says small island states know the feeling all too well of not being seen and not being heard.
We small island states know the feeling only too well, for we feel that we sound like a stuck record, and we recognize that no system that is ignored forever can flourish, and hence we find sympathy for the actions taken by those in the United States of America who are simply asking, in the words of Peter Tosh, for justice. It is clear, my brothers and sisters, that we need additional criteria to determine equitable access and fair allocation that truly measures our vulnerability in the middle of a pandemic and at the start of a hurricane season.
And bikers and other members of the motorsports community are taking the lead in a cleanup of sections of the Iolibla Highway on Saturday. Biker Carlos Charles is one of the main organizers of the cleanup campaign. He says it will begin in an effort to encourage truckers to keep the road free of debris.
Saturday coming, the NIR in conjunction with the guys from Speedy Recovery, we are going to undertake a campaign where we will be cleaning up the dangerous areas of the roads, particularly on the west coast of Dominica. So we're inviting everyone, the guys from OnlyDominican.com, the guys from the Subi Cruise, the cars, doesn't matter, the 767 Bike Club. We are all doing it for everyone. We're not just for the NIR bikers, but for everyone in motorsports as well. So we're gonna take it a step further to clean up the roads. Hopefully the persons in the general public will pay attention, and as well as the authorities will come on board with us as we try to keep our roads safe and clean.
The organizers are encouraging those who plan on turning out to take along a broom and wear a mask. Cleanup starts at 9 in the morning.
Away $30,000 in cash, 2 bags of money plus a grand every Friday.
We're flowing better every day, and now we're making parties great. That's 3 ways that you can play. So listen up.
Top up.
$10 more.
Sign up.
Just switch the flow.
Get a plan.
1 gig or more. If you wanna win cash galore.
We flow.
Win a bag of money.
Cash out.
Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? From Flow.
So top up, get a plan, or switch now to win. It only gets better with Flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
To end the news, the headlines again. An unusual move by the Antilles Bishops' Conference demanding change following the public killing of U.S. citizen George Floyd. The safety of Dominican children, a major priority for humanitarian organization IsraAid. And the EU's recent shame list as to difficulties confronting CARICOM countries already fighting COVID-19 and an upcoming above-normal hurricane season. Feel free to access or pass the newscast on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Andrea Louis, and to all of our viewers around the world, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend.